and welcome back to another episode. So, I have my buddy's bass here, and it looks like the active portion of it is not functioning properly. We have a volume knob here that is a push-pull volume knob, which means you can push it in to turn on the active electronics in this bass, or we can pull it out to go passive mode. And what the problem is in active, I'll show you. Turn it all the way up. It's very broken and crackly sounding when you really ram on it. Sounds terrible. Almost like there's something loose. Only works at high volumes or high vibration if there's something loose in here. But if I turn this down and go passive, it works perfect. No problems. Active. So yeah, I'm gonna check to see if it's the volume pot that's broken or loose. I'll check it for cold solder joints, and I'll also dig into the electronics inside this, because I know there are some capacitors and resistors and stuff, and we'll see if those are bad. But we'll start with the basics first. We'll remove this volume knob and look at all the solder connections to see if they're good. So let's get into it. So here's what I've done so far. I looked at this volume pot here. Like I said before, it's a push-pull. So when you push it in, it activates the active portion of the electronics. And it is on its own separate pot technically, because there's two different pots built into this. So when you pull it, it uses a different pot as opposed to when it's pushed in. But I did the basic thing, I tried switching out the battery. That didn't help, so I checked the voltage going into the little amplifier board here, and it is getting 9 volts from the battery. So I know these terminals are good and that there's not just a loose battery connection there. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to just start pulling these out and checking all the wire connections to them to make sure everything's soldered in properly. I'm going to just get cracking into that. Okay, I just want to show you how this works with the ohm meter. So I have it connected to my leads currently, and as I turn the knob, you'll see on the multimeter that we get different readings as I turn that knob up. It's nice and smooth, gradual. So that's perfect. And I know that tone knob is working just fine. I'm basically going to do that to the main volume pot. I think that's the culprit here, so I'll get these other knobs back in and then we'll focus on this one. Cranked all the way open, you should get no resistance, which makes sense. But as you turn it down, the resistance should go up. I know this plug here is a bit loose. I think we can move it. Let's see. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that little nut there is loose, and that can cause, wires to disconnect and whatnot. I might take out this plug and inspect these connections to make sure they're soldered on there right. So let me get into that next. I'll pull this guy out and we'll take a look. Okay, so just moving this a little bit. There's a white wire. Came right off. I'm going to solder that back on there and probably add some solder to the other ones as well, because that purple one looks like it's going to go any second. And this was quite twisted up in here. So I'm going to clean this up a bit and get these wires reconnected in there and see if that helps us any. It could just be a loose connection. I guess when you really slam on the base and this guy vibrates, you might actually be making that connection that we're looking for. But yeah, let me do that and we'll see where we can go from there. Groovy. So here's what I ended up doing. I resoldered all of the input jack and tested the ohms on all of the pots, and they seem good. I'm not really sure what else I can do unless it's the electronics on this board here. We have a couple surface mount capacitors, regular electrolytic capacitor. There's also a IC there, but I'm not sure what that does. You got a diode or two, and I'm guessing that IC there is some kind of a amplifier of some kind, filter amplifier. But I'm gonna see if the resoldering of all these wires helped any. So let's go upstairs and check this baby out. Okay, so I've been through this base 100%, and all of the solder points and ohm readings from all the pots and pickups and switches, everything's fine. It was pretty lengthy to check all that stuff out, but I was basically boiling it down to the volume, push-pull volume pot here. I mean, that's passive. Push it in, it's active, and none of the electronics are working. So I decided to look at the actual jack that it plugs into. And that ringing was just me because I had it partially unplugged. But because this is battery powered, it's a electronic active base. There's no on-off switch. The on-off switch is built into the jack itself, so when you plug in the guitar, it makes a bridge and turns on the electronics. So if I take my screwdriver and I make that bridge happen, basically manually turning on the electronics, everything comes on as it should. And I'll remove my screwdriver as I play a note here. That's without the screwdriver and with. So luckily it's only the jack on the base that is bad. So I'm just gonna order one up, I guess, and we'll get it replaced. The pot here, this push-pull volume pot from Mech, it's a M84500, and that thing's $110 online. That's just stupid money. I guess it's supply and demand, and they can be fart faces about it if they want to. But anyway, that's the issue with this base. It's going to be a nice cheap fix. And, I'm sure Mark will be pretty excited. I don't know how many days it's going to take for a new jack to come in, but I'll just order that up. And that's what was wrong with the old base here. So yeah, a little different video than I normally do. So I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, stick around and I'll be doing other fun stuffs as well. So cheers. Bad Jack.